How do you kind of help your clients prepare for that? If they're a first-time home buyer, they've never done contracts, they've never signed contracts before, how do you sort of get them ready for that?
That is also working in your own best interest as a realtor, because we know we're not just transactional.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is some of the biggest misconceptions that you run into with first-time home buyers?
Welcome to the TNT Real Estate Podcast, where we spark conversations that set you up for real estate success. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Tanya, and each week we bring you expert tips on navigating Northern Ontario's real estate market. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, we've got the tools to help you thrive. Welcome back to the TNT Podcast, where we unpack real estate trends with a northern lens. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Kevin Belanger, who's a realtor with Sutton-Benchmark Realty. Now, Kevin has been a realtor for almost 10 years now, so you're going to be celebrating your 10th anniversary this fall, so almost congratulations. And Kevin also has had 2 seasons of a very successful Eastlink segment on TV called Reality. So we're kind of turning the tables around here. I was a guest on your show once, and now you get to be a guest on ours.
Yes, this is me returning the favor.
Thank
so
you.
Thanks so much for the invite. It's great to be here. A very, very cool setup you have.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. So one of the things that we were talking about in the office not too long ago is your love of working with first-time home buyers. So I really wanted to get your take on what that's like and some of the advice you might have for first-time home buyers looking in the northern real estate market. So just to start off, how do you first approach first-time home buyers? You're meeting them for the first time. How do you go ahead and build that trust with them at that first meeting?
Well, how do you meet them? I mean, when you look at your first-time home buyers, they're typically the younger set, right? They scrimped, they've saved, they finally have their down payment. It's fair to say that a lot of these people are online. So oftentimes your first point of contact is almost in that very formal setting, which I'm going to say, unfortunately, as we lead into your next question, is they'll be responding to a listing in some way, or they'll be calling in the office looking for some more advice on something they've seen online, right? And that's always a very, they're contacting an agent or a brokerage that they're not very familiar with, and you kind of have to break that ice very, very quickly, right? So emails from realtor.ca, they can be very, very formal. If you're doing the social media and they'll slide into your DMs, as they say, then you have that opportunity to maybe be a little bit more casual, right? And you kind of get to see what other things that they've responded to online. So it kind of gives you a quick overview of who you're starting to build rapport with, right? So just kind of meeting people on their levels, you can kind of tell from their personality if they're very formal, if they're very casual, how they like being responded to.
Yeah. Do you find sometimes when you're meeting somebody for the first time that they might have a bit of a guard up because they're meeting a realtor and they're just not too sure about the process? How do you sort of like build their trust to start to then feel comfortable telling? They have to tell you a lot, right? They have to tell you about their finances, what they're approved for, and it can get pretty personal.
Oh, it is. I mean, by the end of the transaction, they'll tell you so much more. It's sort of a trope that your realtor wears so many hats, and one of them is the part-time therapist. So you'll really dig deep into their life for, like you said, the finances, to see what they can afford, but also you want to learn a lot about their lifestyle, right? So why are they buying a particular house they're buying? Is gardening outdoors important to them? Is area important because of the work? What are their plans? Like, they're sharing with you what are their plans for the future. Oftentimes people don't even aren't honest to themselves what their plans are to the future, and they're attempting to be honest about you with that. So it's really, really neat. In fact, building rapport, a lot of my clients I do find come from my direct sphere of influence, people I know, people I went to school with, people I used to work with, their friends, and then their friends of friends. There's only 6 steps to Kevin, right? So when you meet a client that way, there's a little bit of built-in rapport already, because you know that your name has been passed along. But there's this, I'll share one story with you. I had sold some folks a house. It was almost 10 years later. So being 10 years, there was kind of this recent thing that happened. My past client introduced me to her sister, who was then trying to buy a house. So she thought, Kevin's cool. I'm in it with Kevin. This is going to be great because my sister had a good experience. But the sister's boyfriend had a little bit of not phobia, but just a little shy about meeting new people, and was sort of leery about spending the day with somebody who's going to try to sell them a house by the end of the day, like it was an episode of HGTV. We looked at 6 or 7 houses, and by the end he stopped me. He said, you know what, I got to tell you, I was really nervous. My girlfriend kind of dragged me along and meeting a realtor. I got to say, you've put me so at ease. And what he ended up saying is, it kind of felt like you're trying to unsell us a house all day. If you're going to represent somebody, you want to make sure that the flaws aren't, I have kind of some knowledge of structure. So I'm looking at roofs, foundations, electrical components insofar as I can. And if I see any major flaws, obviously I'm going to point them out, right? So he kind of said, it seems like you weren't trying to hustle us into anything. So that's really, if you can show purely and honestly that you're working in your client's best interest, you're going to build that rapport naturally. There's no tricks to it, right? Just work in their best interest.
Yeah, so you demonstrate to them that you're looking out for them, you're picking out the flaws. One of our agents had said, like, her job, she finds, is actually, when you love a house, it's to like point out all the flaws so that you love it a little bit less. And when you don't love a house, she kind of turns it around and tries to show you kind of like, well, maybe you're missing a few aspects here and there. So sometimes it can be hard to sort of guide your client to what they need or want. But I think you demonstrating that honesty right up front is showing them that you're working in it for them.
I really think that's the best approach.
Yeah.
You almost want to pick apart everything you can about it until you find the house that's beyond reproach. Yeah. Until you're as the grumpy agent sitting there kind of like, well, I guess you can buy this house then. Fine. If there's no flaws and the price is right, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, that is working for your client's best interest, but try this one on for size. That is also working in your own best interest as a realtor, because we know we're not just transactional. We meet clients for life. When they call you in 6 years saying, we've got the promotion, we're having a kid, some major life step has happened, and now we're growing into our next home. If you've done your job right the first time, better chance they're going to call you back and continue to work with you. Better chance they're going to be able to sell that house, help them realize that equity, and they're going to, for the second time, say, Kevin's just the guy.
Yeah, right? And more likely they're going to refer you to their friends and family.
Exactly.
As your clients do.
So it's really nice when your best interest and their best interest really
they align.
Go down the same street, right?
Absolutely. So right now we're kind of in this market where it can be a little bit challenging for first-time home buyers, especially because it is heavily weighted on the sort of the sellers. It's a seller's market, let's be honest. And often first-time home buyers are competing. So it can be a bit challenging. In addition to that, they're filling out a ton of paperwork to get an offer ready to go. How do you kind of help your clients prepare for that? If they're a first-time home buyer, they've never done contracts, they've never signed contracts before, how do you sort of get them ready for that?
There is a lot to putting in a contract, and then there can be pages of different schedules. And you know what? It's little, small changes in wordings that just seem so boilerplate. You flip a sentence and it means completely something else. Survive and not merge is something that comes up in real estate language a lot. It had to be explained to me. A lot of people without having studied contract law understand these. You're right, and it can be when you're in that hot seat too. When you're writing an offer on a house that you really, really love, you don't want to get bogged down with those details. You want to have that excitement. So I think it really makes sense to help prepare clients before. I've seen some really good guides that sort of explain an offer in plain language. So it'll have the paragraph as it appears in the AREA form, and then it'll have kind of
like a layman's
terms of it. I'm going to once again share a story with you. I had a client was super nervous about the process. And I could see that we were sometimes holding back from writing an offer because there was something holding her back. And I asked her once, I said, why don't you come to the office? We'll write an offer. We'll pick a listing that came out today, even if it doesn't matter if you like the house or not, but we'll go through it and I'll print it out. And usually we e-sign now, but I'll print it out. We'll grab the nice fountain pen and we'll read it all out, and we'll take all the time you need because we're not under any time crunch. The offer isn't due at 6. We can spend all night in the office asking all the questions, and then at least a lot of the boilerplate stuff is covered, right? So when time is of the essence and we have to counter very quickly, we can just go over the really important bullet points that change, not everything. So do a total dress rehearsal if you need to.
That's a really great point. I mean, I feel like often real estate and realtors, we're so reactionary. We're like, let's see a house, you love it, let's go, let's do the offer, rather than preparing ahead of time like you are doing. You're meeting your clients ahead of time and going through those contracts, preparing them and getting them used to the idea of what's going to transpire when they find the right house.
I mean, there's something to that too, is understanding your client, and people have different tolerances for that. I mean, I'm probably guilty for over-explaining the paperwork. I will sit and hammer it into my clients, and I can sometimes see their eyes rolling into the back of their head. I worked with one client, and he's a good personal friend of mine, but he has a few transactions under his belt. And he kind of looked at me like, Kev,
stop explaining.
On what page do I find the price and the closing date? Like, I just can we get this done, right? But you don't want to be. You'd rather over-explain than under-explain every time. But then some clients will, with a fine-tooth comb, go over everything, and you kind of have to explain to their level.
Yeah. Right.
Some people really, really want that extra. Some people, they want just the hits, right? Yeah. Explain to them what's salient to them.
Yeah. What are the Coles Notes version? So what do you think is some of the biggest misconceptions that you run into with first-time home buyers? Some things that they sort of come to the table with this preconceived notion of how it's going to go that is sort of a myth we should debunk.
Okay. So I'm going to say something that is very, very much against the grain with conventional real estate thinking. Because then you see the memes online and other realtors, it's kind of this perennial joke is no showings till you're pre-approved. Every realtor wants you to get pre-approved before you go look for houses. And I might be the one person who would be a proponent of other. How do you know you're going to like buying a house, or if anything's in your proposed market unless you go see it? And so I think the two should be done concurrently. I don't see any fault in taking an afternoon off, planning, hoping, wishing, dreaming, looking at a few houses while you're still in the process of getting that pre-approval. I mean, you should have some start. You should be getting the forms necessary together. It shouldn't be like on the back burner, but to come totally with a firm pre-approval before you even get to go look at a showing, I think might be doing everybody a disservice. Because I'll tell people this a lot when we're looking at houses. You'll know what to see it. Look, I'm not going to be selling you a house. When little first-time home couples go shopping for a house and they give that look to each other, and you can see, that's when you know it's the one. You're not shopping for a house so much as you are shopping for a feeling. You're shopping for a feeling, exactly. So to go get that ready, to get some showings under your belt, to start seeing the prices, the areas, the values, the features. By the time you're pre-approved, you'll know it to see it. What happens if the perfect house for you is the first house we've ever looked at, but you don't know how to recognize it yet? So a little bit of research in planning to do some showings, I think is totally valid.
I think that's a really good point, and probably worthwhile for buyers to know that they should at least do their taxes before they get their pre-approval. Make sure you're up to date with your taxes and you got your forms ready to go, because it can be a daunting process to get your mortgage pre-approval. But
yes, that's not to say get completely out of lunch, because you're right. There's some caveats to what I say. If you think you're going to get pre-approved for a certain number, and then I start shopping around that number, and then the news comes back,
you don't.
It can be a little heartbreaking. So when I'm saying you don't need to be firmly pre-approved, at least maybe tinker around with some of those online tools who, based on your best guesses, will tell you what area you like. Do some, but you don't have to be all the way there, but you do have to be all the way pre-approved.
Right.
When you're putting in offers.
Okay. So you talked about putting in offers, and you talked about disappointment. How do you deal with disappointment? How do you give people bad news? Unfortunately, it's happening more and more frequently with home buyers missing out and the competition. How do you deliver bad news?
So, I mean, I'm a little starved for choice in this regard, because I very much wear my heart on my sleeve. I think that's why a lot of my clients have ended up enjoying working with me. I've always told them it doesn't really feel like work. It feels like I'm just hanging out with you guys for a weekend. And bonus, we get to look at some cool houses, right? Yeah. So when I call people with you've got the house, you can hear it in the ringtone before you even pick up, right? And I don't think I'm very good at disguising that there's bad news looming. So every time I've delivered bad news, it's don't lead in with, like when you go try to find a recipe online, there's that whole life story first before they give you the recipe. You don't need to cushion people. They're adults. They're adults enough that they're pre-approved and ready in a position to buy a house. Just tell them.
Yeah.
I've opened phone calls with, hi, we didn't get the house. Our search is going to continue. Sometimes you can do some groundwork and be like, you know what, I've already found some other, why don't we go look at this one? Or remember that one we looked at last week? It's still for sale. Let's maybe go have a second showing, but don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to sidestep it. You know, they're reasonable, mature adults. Yeah. They can handle it. And I think somewhere in their mind, they're planning on a couple hurdles in the process, right?
Yeah. So do you prepare them ahead of time, let them know that you probably are going to have a few hurdles along the way? And then so when you deliver that bad news, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, I mean, in this market, I think you'd be silly not to. And I almost start with that. This is going to be a hard process. We are not going to get the first one.
Yeah.
It's going to be painful, but that's almost the other side of the coin there. The silver lining is that I'll often say, if you like the house, the market's so crazy, there'll maybe be multiple offers on everything we're going to try right on. So what's the harm in writing? If you like it right, sure, we're going to lose, but what does it cost you to try, right?
Yeah. Do you find maybe though that it's challenging when they start missing out on one property after the next to then sort of like get them excited for the next if they keep losing out? How do you sort of turn their mindset around and make it positive that there is maybe something good around the corner?
Maybe you've heard this expression in real estate before, but realtors wear many hats.
Yeah.
So therapist is one, cheerleader is another one, and you're in this market. That's really part of it. It's twofold. You gotta keep the faith while they're feeling bummed out, but you also need to manage that expectation right from the get go. We were talking about how to give clients that confidence, and I was saying I do a dress rehearsal with them, but it's also explaining the step before it happens, when they know to expect it, the pain is a little bit lessened, right? So if you can explain before they start losing offers that this is going to happen a lot, it doesn't feel like such a shock or something that's just happening to them, or why am I losing? It's the term losing is so embedded in us to have these negative emotions, right? But if you know that is part of it, you will lose a few before you win one. It feels like you're doing what is expected of you. You're not losing. You're getting further and further down the process towards winning.
Yeah, you're getting closer to
we're not losing, goal. We're getting closer to winning.
Okay. One of the things that we want to ask everybody who joins us on this podcast is to tell us your craziest real estate story. So something crazy that happened on a showing or with a client. You got a crazy real estate story for us, Kevin?
I'm not sure I can say that on the internet. But just I think tenanted properties are so fun, because when you're showing houses that the seller lives in, it's their family home. It's not that you can see the pride of ownership where you can't with tenants. That's just not strictly true. But the sellers have skin in the game. They've called the realtor. They're paying the commission. They're pocketing the money. They're in charge of the showings, and they have the influence over if a showing goes well or not.
Yeah.
And we have heard of some bad tenants, right? So when you go into single-family residence where the sellers live there, I mean, they're boiling cinnamon on the stove and it smells great and it looks good. Sometimes tenants aren't quite so diligent. So, I mean, we go to show the house. And I remember the funniest thing about it was the selling agent was a little bit absentee. I called him for the showing, more than 24 hours notice. And he said, oh, you know what? You can't have the showing. I won't be able to get there in time to put notice on. So it's just not going to happen. And I had lined up a bunch for my seller that day. And I said, you know what? It's just down the road for me. I'll just go slap a quick notice on the door. I'll take a picture of it, show it to you so you know it's been sent within 24 hours notice, and then I can get the showing. And when I get there, the tenants, there was no notice. And I kind of looked at them like, well, I'm pretty confident that there was, because I personally myself hand tacked it onto your door and
took a photo.
And then took a photo and sent it. And I didn't even take out the photo to show them, because at a certain point you're just being kind of patronizing. But the moral of the story is when we walked in the house, they really, 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 really didn't know we were coming. So they were very much doing something that folks, I don't know, they took the afternoon off from their work to hang out with each other and didn't know we were. They were on
daytime showing.
Yeah.
Daytime date. Okay, well, that's interesting.
So knock loud, and as soon as you open the front door, I always say realtor. I kind of almost have it in like a sing-songy voice now.
Yeah. Yeah. When I go meet with my clients and we're going to show tenanted properties, I always give like the big landlord knock, like the big thud thud. And my clients look at me and I'm like all dressed, all proper and everything. They're a little bit taken aback by how I knock on the door so fiercely. But you have to do that with tenants.
What is funny, there's something you say that about dressing right. I think gone are the days where realtors wear like 3-piece suits and vests. Some still do it, and I respect their game, absolutely. For me, it's just a little too hot in the summer. But I've also always felt massively overdressing your clients can be a bit patronizing.
Okay. Yeah.
I've always said you want to outdress them by one notch. Mm-hmm. One notch shows that you're a professional. You're serious. You're a professional. Yeah. But 3 or 4 notches, and
it's a little.
What are you better than me? Exactly. But dressing appropriate for the part puts sellers and tenants at ease as well, right? Mm-hmm. When you knock and open the door, if you're in your Nike shirt and Lululemon shorts, they'll be like, "Who is?"
Yeah, I've had sometimes clients contact me and they're like, there's 3 or 4 people here at our house and we don't know who's the realtor. Is there a realtor? I don't know. They're all wearing sneakers and baseball caps.
That's the modern realtor though, but exactly. I
don't know.
But it's wild to think that. Throw on a suit jacket and it's which one's the realtor?
Yeah.
The one
you can wear the baseball cap maybe with a suit jacket. But I like your point. Just like dress it up one notch over your client, right? So, and we often have clients that come after work and they're in their like high vis gear or whatever, their work boots and stuff. And
I think there's no requisite on the client. And it's often their day off. So you're not going to make them dress up, right? They got it. And you want them comfortable. You want them in breathable fabrics. So they're having a good day.
So you work hard to build a relationship with your clients. How do you keep your relationship going with your clients? How do you keep in touch with them over the years?
Okay, so there's one big thing I do. Pumpkins, Tanya. Pumpkins. Maybe it's just because Halloween's my favorite holiday, but there's this, I think it's 7 years now, that I've had this promotion going where I call it Pumpkin Sanity. I overload up my car suspension with pumpkins and hand deliver them to my clients with a little letter tacked on.
That's amazing.
It's neat. Yeah, it's neat because a lot of them are expecting it now. They've gotten 7 or 8 pumpkins in a year, and so you get a lot of happy messages from them. And I write on my letter, if you carve it, I want to see what you've done, right? I spent 3 or 4 days delivering them. I want to see what art has come out. So they'll send me their really, really cool, sometimes a little bit silly art. Yeah. So it makes their day, makes my Halloween, and it's good for social media too, because they'll post and tag me and show what they've made, and then I get all these pictures. I got kind of a cool post about it, and a little walk down memory lane for me as well. I get to drive and personally visit every house not every house I've ever sold, but a good chunk of the work I've done. So there's a little bit of a retrospective there too. That's
a lot of work to do.
It is.
To deliver all those pumpkins.
It is. So a lot of people will do something similar. The pop buy gift is pretty common, like bring your clients a packet of seeds, flower seeds in the spring. But some realtors will do that. And I like these approaches, the very formal newsletter, or be posting online regular. I think the personal touch means so much more. Yeah. Even if it's just a text, hey, how's it been, right? Because you do have such a close relationship with these people. You end up more as their friend than their...
And as people's lives evolve too, you get to know them, you get to know how they grow, and they get to see you grow in your life and your business. So I think that's really cool. You keep it personal with them.
Yeah. I tend to be very down home country realtor kind of, rather than the stiff formal, but everybody has their lanes, right? And I just find that's where I'm quite comfortable.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the conversation today, Kevin. I really appreciate it. You are a star with first-time home buyers, and thanks so much for giving us your insights.
Well, thanks for having me. Hopefully I'll get to come back someday.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning into the TNT Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to leave us a comment, subscribe, and share with a friend who might be interested in real estate.
We'll catch you next time, and until then, stay ahead in real estate.